Buenas tardes, bienvenidos y bienvenidas a todos los que os estáis uniendo a esta sesión de webinar del Open Call de colaboradores del Lab 02. Mi nombre es Eduardo Castillo Vinuesa, soy el responsable comisarial de Media Lab aquí en Matadero y bueno, como ya hicimos en nuestro primer laboratorio, es un gusto estar ahora aquí presentando las propuestas que van a formar parte del laboratorio de prototipado colaborativo de nuestro segundo lab, llamado el sublime metabólico. Puesto que esta convocatoria es una convocatoria pública internacional, haré la presentación tanto en español como en inglés, muy breve, y bueno, y ya veremos que saltaremos muy rápido a presentaros todas las propuestas, que la mayoría van a estar explicadas en inglés, ¿vale? Que es la lengua vehicular en la que desarrollaremos el taller. Para aquellos que no nos conozcáis o que no conozcáis lo que estamos haciendo hoy aquí, el Laboratorio de Prototipado de Media Lab es una de nuestras primeras líneas de programación que desarrollamos para desarrollar de manera colaborativa proyectos experimentales. Lo hacemos mediante un proceso en dos fases. Una primera fase que cerramos hace un par de semanas en la que abrimos una convocatoria pública internacional para recibir propuestas, proyectos que tienen que ver con la temática principal que aborda cada uno de nuestros labs. Y una vez cerramos esa primera fase de convocatoria, hacemos un proceso de selección guiado y comisariado por unos expertos en la temática abordada y seleccionamos 8 propuestas, ¿no? En el tema o en el laboratorio 02, que se llama el sublime metabólico, donde estamos de alguna manera tratando otros, ¿no? Imaginando juntos otros posibles regímenes energéticos y materiales a escala planetaria, ya hemos elegido 8 proyectos que hoy presentamos aquí y abrimos una segunda fase de estos laboratorios de prototipado que desarrollamos, que es la fase de colaboradores. Presentaremos los 8 proyectos y abriremos un mes entero de convocatoria en la que personas de disciplinas muy diversas que se sientan interesadas o interpeladas por algunos de los temas que estos proyectos van a desarrollar pueden apuntarse para participar y formar equipos con sus promotores para desarrollarlos. Estos proyectos se desarrollarán en un laboratorio de prototipado, ¿vale? Que tendrá lugar a finales de enero hasta el día 7 de febrero y que estará formado por todos los equipos que seleccionaremos para desarrollar estos 8 proyectos y tutorizado por los mentores del laboratorio, ¿vale? Que en este caso, como sabéis, contaremos con Marina Otero, Joana Moll y Liam Jan. Los proyectos que vais a ver hoy son muy eclécticos, son proyectos que, aunque todos abordan la temática del sublime metabólico, cada uno lo hace desde un punto de vista muy particular. Y bueno, qué mejor que los autores de los proyectos para abordarlos. Ahora salto al inglés y empezamos con la introducción. Hello everyone, as I was saying, I will be very quick in English. My name is Eduardo Castillo Vinuesa. I'm the head creator of here Media Lab, and we are here today to present the 8 projects that have been selected through a public and international call for proposal that we have been developing during the last 2 months. We have selected 8 projects that will be presented today. And now we start the next phase of this collaborative prototyping laboratory, which is a phase of call for collaborators, in which anyone from any discipline and from everywhere around the world can apply to join one of these interdisciplinary teams to develop these 8 amazing projects that we're going to showcase today in a workshop that we will do at the end of January here in our headquarters at Matadero in Madrid. Let's jump in with the projects. The first project that we're going to present is called Transportational Food. It's been presented by Elena Ortin and Vladimir Polupa. As the human population keeps growing, as well as people living in large urban areas, essential needs such as food become a production, transportation, and organization challenge. This systemic conception of food availability is a global issue from a macroscopic perspective, but the question here is that if we could a local or even microscopic resource such as food enzymes be the key to human sustainability regarding nutrition. Our first project is focused on the exploration of new ways to conceive food supply based on self-sufficiency and a circular model for the optimization of the nutrients. It will be presented today by Elena Ortin. Elena, are you with us?
Yes, thank you very much for the introduction. Let me share the screen and start the presentation. Okay, let me check this works. Yeah. So, well, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. I'd like to introduce our project, which is named Transmutational Food. We are two promoters of this project. I am Elena Ortin. I am a medical doctor. I am currently working on substance abuse, but I am also interested in research. And my partner is Vladimir Polupa. He's an architectural designer, and he's also a researcher. Okay, so let's get to the topic. Our starting point for this project is overpopulation. We are almost 8 billion humans on planet Earth, and one of the consequences of overpopulation is overcrowding of cities. What we are asking here is food supply sustainable on the long term in large cities? Well, in the next decades, there's going to be a huge pressure on the food system, and maybe the limitation of food resources will represent a significant evolutionary pressure on the future of the human species. So food production as we know it faces critical perspectives, and also globalization has a huge environmental cost. Nowadays, we are managing this with macro farms and macro agriculture, but this is not sustainable on the long term. So we are asking here is, well, what if this macro problem, which is a macro logistics and macro production problem, could have a microscopic solution or a micro solution? And so we are proposing here to use food enzymes, which are a microscopic resource, and that are proteins that break down ingested macromolecules, and they turn them into smaller molecules that then can be absorbed through the intestinal wall. And well, all kinds of animals produce food enzymes, but they are especially, well, there's a huge variety of food enzymes produced by crustaceans. And so what we're proposing here is to generate a prototype, well, to create a new urban landscape based on food enzymes. So this means that nowadays 1/3 of the food is wasted away, is food waste. And so what if we could organize the food supply in big cities where a lot of people live in them? We could organize food supply from a self-sufficient and local perspective, using food enzymes in order to avoid producing so much food waste, and well, actually transforming that food waste into the food of the future. Because well, the food has macromolecules, and still the small molecules of the food are viable and have a nutrient, well, it's nutrients anyway. So the point is to recreate a dystopia where the food of the future is processed with food enzymes. And so for the workshop, we'd like to study the viability of a machine that we would call enzymatic, that allowed to process the organic matter or food waste, or food that it's not maybe completely waste, but it's it has passed and we are not going to eat it. So if we can leverage it and convert it into the food of the future that is edible and that is still, well, that we want to eat it, right? And so in order to integrate that machine into a future landscape where it would be an urban landscape, so we'd like to render the house of the future, which would be located in this urban landscape of the future. And so, well, we'd like to generate a prototype of this dystopian home, especially the facade and the kitchen, because we'd like to focus on the food production. So by the end of the workshop, we'd like to generate images like this one, which represent the theoretical framework that we've been working on. And so basically these images should depict how this machine works, and also how this this home of the future and this city of the future would look like. And also would like to translate this to reality by creating a mock-up that would be a prototype of this house of the future. And we know this project is very ambitious and we don't have that much time. We have 2 weeks to work on it. So if we just make this prototype of what would be the facade and the kitchen, it would be okay. So this leads us to the organization of the workshop, just to remember a few things. Well, when is it going to take place? It's going to take place by the end of January, and the beginning of February 2023, and it's going to take place in Madrid, here in Spain. And how are we going to do this workshop? Well, we are already preparing some expert talks, and we will have to work a lot on computational design, basically because we want to create this home of the future regarding and putting at the center of the picture the food enzymes. But we'd like to design this home of the future and this urban landscape that would be a dystopian urban landscape. And also, in order to translate this to reality, this construction of a real scale mock-up. And we are also planning a laboratory visit, but well, when we present the workshop in January, we'll tell the collaborators about this. And that take into account that we'll be working in a multidisciplinary and friendly working group. And we want to say that everyone who wants to work on this idea is welcome to collaborate. And so our main keywords are the food of the future, food enzymes, and this dystopian home and dystopian city. Okay, so the collaborators' profiles that we're looking for are basically designers of all kinds, but especially computational designers, industrial designers, interior designers, also model makers for this prototype we want to create, urbanists, and biotechs in order to explore this machine that would use food enzymes. And well, this was a little bit a brief of our idea. And we just wanted to remind everyone who likes this idea and who wants to help us or wants to work with us that they are completely welcome. You have more information on our Instagram, which is transmutational.food, sorry. And also you have a lot of information if you need it in the Instagram of Media Lab. And I'd like to give some space to the new or to the next projects. And thank you very much for listening and for your time.
Sorry, guys, I was muted. I was just thanking you, Elena, for sharing with us this project, and that we are looking forward to actually, develop it together in next January here in Media Lab. As you guys can see, food is a central topic that we are dealing with in the metabolic sublime, because for us is one of the most interesting energy resources that we humans use. Some of the times we don't really see the scope and the systemic implication that its production has. But for example, moving to the next project, what do you know about the fruits you eat? From where did they come and how did they get to you? Why are they here and who brought them? Do you know their stories in their native lands and tongues? Manifesting has an index and methodology for knowledge production and sharing. The next project, which is called Fruit Atlas, examines the media and economic histories of tropical fruits as objects of transnational capital flows. The goal is to imagine new possibilities in production and consumption rooted in a situated understanding of native ecologies and epistemes. The author of this project, Alphonse Chu, can't be with us today, but have sent a video to present the project. So let's go for it.
I want to begin with a story. 1624, and the waves have brought with them the Dutch, tantalized by the scent of brine and sugar on the westbound winds from a distant land. Formosa, they have heard it of the tongues of the Portuguese sailors, read it on ink-splattered papers of the battered ship's logs. Ravenous, they have entered this beautiful island and felt the beautiful people. In their ships, the yellow workers of the continent, hungry refugees in search of something. The tenacious cultivars dream in their quivering seed pods, the taste of new soils far away. There are no roots as once laid by the trade winds. In Taiwan, there is a fruit that we call the shijia, out of a curious resemblance to the head of the Sakyamuni, the Buddha. The sugar apple, or chirimoya, as it is known in Spanish, amongst the many other names of its many other brethren. Originating from the American tropics, the arrival of this thing in Taiwan, over half a world away, is the result of the colonial trade, brought over by the Dutch during the 17th century to the south of the island, where they were cultivated for over 4 centuries to be what they are today, in this distant East Asian island, where its new name speaks of different cosmologies, of a different world, of a different history. It speaks of the shape of the Buddha's head and its old name, where it is called when he was first planted, where it is called as it grew with its communities, buried and unlearned. Within this fruit, of course, are the complex histories of colonial and imperial ambitions, and quite naturally, the economic and ideological flows that they facilitated. Ripe, juicy, delicious. The potent symbol of the creation of the imagined tropical hinterland that were crucial to the colonial project of the West. Fruits continue to defy and be defined by the forces of global capital and logistics, with the most potent modern example being that of the United Fruits activity in Latin America, all over during the Cold War era. Long live the banana republican, as one can say. In the context of the ongoing climate crisis, now past the point of no return, I thus want to begin by proposing an examination of the fruit as a specific object which signify the economies of contemporary agricultural production and its relevance to the flows of global finance, be it as a commodity or even as target of luxurious consumption, and from there on, a possible key to disrupt these forces. From the massive-scale monoculture farming that exhausts the land, to the excessive transnational logistics of transporting fruits from its place of production to elsewhere, additional processing stations, additional points of entry, new modes of engaging fruits rooted in their individual geosocial and social-cultural contexts are thus key for redefining our own relationship to the global foodway and with our native vegetation. What are the environmental knowledges they embody, and what have we forgotten? What do we need to relearn? And of course, what do we need to unlearn? As a practitioner whose work investigates the imaginaries of capital and their mediations, most particularly on terms of the spatial and the temporal, I believe that diverse proximities and scales in critique, in observation, and in direct actions on capital infrastructures are crucial to any serious and sustained attempts at effecting any sort of systemic shifts. As such, this project that I wish to develop and prototype at the Matadero Media Lab encapsulates this notion of openness, porosity, and collective authorship that is only increasingly possible with the digitalities of our time. I want to propose a way of considering Fruit Atlas as a form of action research, where what emerges and comes to the fore is very much about developing solidarities and alternate knowledge networks, which are granular and sensitive to the localities that make up what we think of as the planetary, because there's no such thing as planetary beyond the forces of capital, beyond the forces of the claimed desires. To go beyond a generalized theory of the planetary, I want to propose us to consider then, not theory but practice, a distributed practice for the planetary. As this project that is undefinable by its nature, amorphous in its manifestation, I thus would want to call for the involvement of two types of collaborators in actualizing this vision. Firstly, I am curious about the capabilities afforded by technical collaborators in the fields of design and coding to develop and test different possibilities and usabilities of platform and engagement media. Naturally, in conversation with this technical manifestation, I am also seeking research collaborators that can work across diverse fields, such as agricultural history, economics, indigenous knowledges, environmental studies, and more, who are interested in indexing their works and practices to facilitate knowledge sharing and collective modes of knowledge production. Going beyond the pure field of academia, I am further interested in engaging with agents who are activists and agents who are resisting, and agents who seek the public as a space of refuge and origination, and not just as an abstracted field of analysis, a theater of operation, if one is inclined to the American jingoistic strain. Fruit Atlas seeks to see cartographies and effective geographies that resist the hegemony of what the planetary financial complex have ironed out and flattened. By embracing the notions of polyphony, it is clear that there is only one way we can go, and that is together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alphonse, for sharing this video with us. Looking forward to develop this amazing project in January. Our next project, called Todas las Huellas la Huella, Estéticas Energéticas, is divided into two parts. The first part explored the intersection between social strata and geological layers, unfolding a historical and environmental fabric that investigates the footprint on the landscape left by the exploitation of natural and human resources, its relationship with the structure of social classes, and the distribution of wealth from parallel narrative in different eras and geographies. The second part focus on the history of energy and the present of energy transition projects. This involves an analysis of the extractive techniques used for the operation of the industry, the transformation of the territory, and the creation of social and scientific alternatives that modify our way of understanding the world in which we live in. The author of this project, Elena Lavelles, is here with us today to explain us more about it. Elena, whenever you want, the floor is yours.
Hello, how are you doing? Can you see the screen share?
We do. I do at least, yeah.
Okay.
But we see the whole screen.
Yeah, like before. I don't know why. Let's see.
Okay, now we only see the PDF.
Okay, perfect. Great. Okay.
Wait.
So, hello, thank you for the introduction, Eduardo. And I'm Elena Lavelles. I'm a visual artist and also a filmmaker and a researcher. And thank you for having me here, and especially to all that are seeing the webinar. And I will go with the project that in Spanish is Todas las huellas, la huella, estéticas energéticas, and in English is, I translated it by all the traces, a trace, energy aesthetics. So this project, let's say that it spans on research that I've done previously on possible uses of industrial waste in art, and raises the theme of the Laboratorio, the metabolic sublime, as an updated version of the sublime in the present climate crisis, concerning the sublime of romanticism. As you can see here, this image is like very, very popular, so it's kind of universal when we think about the sublime in painting, I mean, in our history. So during the 18th century, the feeling of danger or loss of control that human beings experience towards the immensity and majesty of nature. Okay, sorry. Well, I will go like this. Nowadays has been transformed into a feeling of fear and uneasiness towards the consequences that we have caused in our environment. And it turns the earth into, the earth into a place where many species, among them also the human being, run the risk of not surviving according to their geography. The pleasure we used to take in admiring nature is dominated now by environmental stress beyond the scale of our control. So when we talk about this kind of scale, we can think about also the machines that are used in mining. This is a photo that I took in Kolubara in Serbia from a coal mine. So this is kind of unsettling, right? Like to think about this kind of huge machines that are opening the earth to extract this kind of material. So in the present, the contemplation of this footprint that human beings leave on the planet's surface that we can see in this image can be both beautiful and perverse. And also the trace that workers leave in the strata, the stone, or in the earth when extracting the natural resources necessary for the development of different societies is a record of the exploitation not only of nature, but also of the invisible human bodies that are the creators of stories, but not participants of history, and who dedicate their vital energy to the production of these voids that are witnesses of the evolution of our society and the transformation of nature, like these people here. There are some of the miners that were working in that mine that I previously showed you. And the scars of the extraction surfaces, as can be seen in these images, this is in in a coal mine, also in the United States, one of the biggest in the world, that is called Powder River Basin. Well, these are marks resulting from this use of different tools used to cut, carve the stone, or dig into the rock. And some are still visible after more than 2,000 years. And the project, the title of the project especially, is inspired by Julio Cortázar's tale and book titled All the Fires, the Fire, where the author tries to make the reader an accomplice by creating a parallelism between characters, situations, and historical moments united by the same event. It doesn't matter under what circumstances the fire takes place, because the fire always ends up burning, just as no matter the era, the fire between couples, for example, between people, the tension between love and hate is always the same. It repeats itself. So in this case, for the project, what I consider that is repeating and is constant is the transformation and environmental impact on our planet by human beings during the Anthropocene. And all the traces, this project invites also the observer to become an accomplice, to look around and understand this trace that we have left on our planet, in our nature. It also appeals us to look at the transformation that has guided us to a climate crisis that we can no longer ignore, caused by our extractive and destructive way of understanding the world. And that repeats itself no matter where or when in history. So something that we already know and accept, that we are living with it, and we are kind of accepting, and for which we must propose new ways of seeing, understanding, and coexisting with our environment, and avoiding these kind of environmental disasters and accidents, like in this photo, for example, in Brazil, when a dam broke and spilled tons and tons of water that was contaminated by the industry, the mining industry also. In this first part of the project, as Eduardo was commenting before, the symbol of this transformation is represented by the marks left when extracting rocks, gold in coal in different rock surfaces, and 3 places. This is the different places are the quarries of Tusculum, Rome, Italy, that are in Rome, in Italy. The galleries of Las Médulas, that is in León also, as the great open pit of Febrero, that is also in León, in Spain. And this work is being, I'm developing right now this part of the work thanks to the production grant of the Ministry of Culture of Spain. And the second part of the project will be developed in the lab, the metabolic sublime, during January and February, those 2 weeks. And the goal is the intersection between history, art, science, and technology, to expand the possibilities of action in which the citizens and natural ecosystems are placed at the center. Because I think it's necessary to create new ways of living together in territories that are becoming uninhabited, and to improve also a planet that is increasingly suffering the consequences of our use and exploitation. For this, the attempt to decouple energy consumption from economic growth is essential, using practices where culture and science together can have a direct impact by involving professionals from different fields and disciplines. So the goal is to develop prototypes of urban furniture made from landfill, biomass, and industrial waste, such as fly ashes, which is a byproduct that comes from burning coal in power plants. So, for example, this photography is this sculpture is made by this kind of cement that comes from this kind of fly ashes, of these ashes. And these prototypes will be developed in collaboration with Ana Fernandez, that she is from the Institute of Construction Sciences Eduardo Torroja, that belongs to TESIC, that is the scientific institute here in Spain. And the works are inspired by the voice left by the excavations and mining operations of the past and present, and which continue to empty of identity and inhabitants and fill with waste the different areas where these industries end up exploiting the territory. So the coal extracted, this is a photo, like an electron microscope photo from these fly ashes. And the coal extracted at mine is burned to get energy, which releases CO2 and generates fly ash. And this fly ash is a fine dust, a byproduct of this combustion of coal in power plants. And this waste is being used nowadays in studies of new building materials such as cement or concrete. And because and it's also considered as an environmentally friendly byproduct, since it is a way to recycle it and avoid more CO2 emissions for Portland cement fabrications. Like in these images, we can see the process of cement making, Portland cement making. That is one of the reasons why one of the biggest CO2 emissions related to industry. And with the design and manufacture of these prototypes in collaboration with the scientific, we are developing also functional and sustainable works of art from industrial waste. Well, not just from industrial waste, also from landfill and biomass waste, which avoids new production and consumption of materials. But in addition, we are giving an alternative to use to coal byproducts, landfill, waste, and biomass as a symbol of new possibilities of thinking about the use of waste in different fields and collaboration with different professionals such as architects, urban planners, chemists, designers, and artists. And the kind of collaborators that we will be needing for the development of this project, the kind of profiles are with knowledge on 3D design, furniture design, urbanism architecture, also experts in the use of materials, chemists, engineers, environmentalists, and people with the skills in furniture and mold making in wood or other kinds of materials. And also people interested in climate and environmental issues are preferred. But of course, this is very open to different kinds of collaborations. So thank you so much. And yeah, I will continue. I mean, I will leave the space for the rest. Thank you.
Again, thank you so much, Elena, for sharing this project with us. As you can see, we started with food, and now we have moved on onto the geological layers that power our worlds, right? The next project, proposed by Max Dovey and called All Our Best Machines Are Made of Sunshine, explores the geopolitics of rare earth minerals through physical computing, metal detecting, and myth making. Through a series of participatory workshops and group activities, the project aims to reconfigure attitudes towards technology and rare earth minerals through collective acts of material and spiritual experimentation. The project navigates various land-based cultural practices that proliferate myth and folklore around stones, mining, and mineral extraction to transcend material-driven resource economics and propose alternative ontological relations between humans, earth, and technology in the so-called clean energy transition. Max, thank you for joining us today, and looking forward to know more about All Our Best Machines Are Made of Sunshine.
Thanks, Edu. Thanks, everyone at Media Lab. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes, we do.
Great. My name is Max Dovey. I am a live artist, often working with code and data and systems of contention. My pronouns are he, him, his. And for anyone that cannot see me, I'm white man in a colorful shirt with a fair hair and a slightly red face. Yeah, like Eddie said, this is All Our Best Machines Are Made of Sunshine. I'm going to talk you through the project, and hopefully it sounds of interest to you. I mean, I wouldn't like to be trying to choose between these projects for this Metabolic Sublime. There's already, we've heard 4 and they're really exciting, but I'll tell you about this one. So this is, I've been interested in the geopolitics of rare earth minerals, and I've been thinking about ways of exploring this reliance on rare earth minerals through different practices. At the moment, this is a combination of physical computing and electronics, which is sort of my background, metal detecting, which I've never done before in my life, and storytelling and myth making, which I'm always captivated by a good story. So yeah, these are the research areas that I'm plugging into as part of this project. And the mining and extraction of rare earth minerals and connecting the power that we source through our electronic devices and connecting that to the land and the sites of extraction feels very important to explore. And I mean, in the context that we're currently at, in this struggle to find rare earth minerals, it feels poignant at this moment in time to really connect with where they come from, the supply chain and the geopolitical tensions about where they're coming from, and the cultures and the invisible humans, like Elena was mentioning, that work day and night to extract them. And there's also such huge environmental impact on the places in which they're extracted from. So this is a mock-up that I made in the studio to sort of present the different themes that I was trying to connect. At the end, you can see some electric cars or old phone batteries with Lego wheels, and they're all connected with this conductive copper tape. So I've been exploring how we can make circuits and electronics and kind of physical computing using Arduinos and Raspberry Pis, using some of these materials. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on, but this is a kind of early prototype. So one of the aims of the project is to strengthen an embodied affiliation between our consumer electronics and the land and the environment where the rare earth minerals are extracted, that are then implemented and compounded into our devices, from our phones to our electric cars to medical equipment to drones and satellites. So to create a kind of a physical connection between this material. And another aim is a bit more sensual, to kind of reposition humans and look back in time over our relationship with stones as artifacts, as having spiritual properties or potentiality to connect to higher divine beings and spirits. So there's a long history of stone worship from various land-based cultures and the Paleolithics. This pebble on the right-hand side here is the Macapango pebble. This is 2 to 3 million years old, and it's reasonable to believe that the Paleolithic ancestors treated certain stones not just as a weapon or a tool, but as something more, as mediums that we could communicate with, to spirits or gods, or connect to the divine or the cosmos. And I've been very interested in this history of stone worship with different land-based cultures, and also bringing that up to date with even contemporary mining myths and folklore that are used by the artisanal miners in the Democratic Republic of Congo when they're extracting cobalt. There's a lot of witchcraft and magic and folklore that is retold to, well, maintain various different belief systems from between the humans and the rock and the stone and the work. So I'm really interested in the myths and the folklore attached to and our relationship with these stones and rare earths. And I'd like to retell some of those stories, or at least create spaces where we can retell and experience some of those stories. So some of the methods that I've been interested in and that I'd like to be prototyping with at the Metabolic Sublime residency is oral storytelling, like I've mentioned. I've been doing a lot of research on these myths and folklores for different communities. And I think these allegories they give us lessons about how we can be more interdependent with ecologies and put humans in a non-dominant position with our environment. And I think captivating myths and narratives around stones, mining and electrical energy, we can create temporary spaces where we relate to rare earth minerals as more than a material resource to be extracted and then, shipped off to another country as part of the e-waste. But these elements should be worshipped if we depend on them so much. Another method that I've been experimenting with, metal detecting. Like I said at the beginning, I've never done metal detecting before, but I now have 6 metal detectors that I'm interested in using as an instrument to listen to the ground and listen to the earth and find metal or stones and rocks that have magnetic properties, non-ferrous metal. I've been going out a bit, but I'm kind of interested in adapting this metal detector instrument to make it possibly playback audio. So maybe we can listen to some of these stories as we go out walking together, and also maybe turn it into a sonic instrument where we use it to play and make different frequencies from the different stones, metals and rocks that we find from the ground. And the last method is through ceremony and through collective action. Here's a picture of a residency I took part in July, where I kind of held a ceremony acknowledging our reliance on rare earths, and people contributed conductive materials or metals that they had on them in their persons. I mean, everyone's carrying around these minerals from all over the world in their pocket if they have a smartphone, but some people just offered their belt or their sandal, and this then created a sonic installation in which I retold some of these myths and folklores. And for this particular installation, I was using the bare conductive and copper tape to be able to trigger these different sounds. So anyone interested in, so this is one potential outcome. So, a kind of ceremony in which we create a circuit based on what we find when we're metal detecting, and we create a kind of a sonic chorus from the metal detectors, or through other means, through creating through sensors and physical electronics. Just checking the time, sort of running out of time. So there's a few open ethical questions about this project that are on my mind, and I just wanted to put into the presentation. One is the sensitivity around handling existing folklore narratives and myths from indigenous land-based cultures and communities, and not appropriating them and handling them with care and sensitivity. Something that the mobility of this piece, I think, is quite interesting. So obviously the places that we choose to go out and detect is really important. And I also am torn about whether to damage the land and leave a trace, and whether to actually take anything from the land. I haven't quite worked out whether that's ethically a good practice if we're going to talk about the ethics of extraction. So that's something that we can happily talk about in the workshop. The post event, so kind of what continues after this activity of going out and detecting and finding artifacts, creating electronic circuits, learning about our reliance on rare earths. What happens after that? Can we archive the finds on an online database? Can we start to index them? I think that could be quite interesting to explore. And the community of this project. So who contributes? What is the shared knowledge that we're creating based on who takes part and the participants and the audience? I've got another slide about, so the collaborators, probably the most important slide of this presentation. I mean, anyone who is interested in this project, you're very welcome to come and join. I'd be very happy to work with anyone with any background, these are the sort of, I mean, I was putting these together. If you're already interested in rare earth minerals, great. If you're interested in like electronics and circuitry and physical computing, fantastic. I think you might have fun with this project. Circuit benders, I'd love to do some circuit bending with the metal detectors. Or anyone with like, I mean, I have a bit of knowledge, but someone better with circuits and who knows not to blow something up would be very useful. Geologists, if there's a paleomagnetist in the listening somehow, that would be amazing. I've just heard about paleomagnetism, where you study the change of epochs of geological time through the change of magnetism in the rocks. So yeah, there's also this electromagnetism obviously coming in with the metal detectors and electrical conductivity. So if there's anyone as enthusiastic about electromagnetism as me at the moment, I'd love to meet you. This sounds a bit like a dating profile now. And yeah, I'll wrap up because I've run out of time. But I know that there's a syllabus for the metabolic sublime already, and I'm also a user of Arena. And if anyone wants to see, it's a bit messy at the moment, this critical minerals channel, but this is the channel that I've been archiving points of reference and interest for me on this project, and it's probably the best place to see the context and where I'm coming from. And then if you want to reach out to me or look at some of my previous work, those are the normal places. And here's an image of me metal detecting in the garden, and I found a big old piece of shrapnel. And so metal detecting can actually be quite fun. I just wanted to prove that I have actually found something. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Max. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's move forward to other projects related to the metabolic sublime. The next proposal is a very particular and sensitive one. It explores illness and disability as tools from which to make a critical reading of the Anthropocene, ecological policies, and energy flows, establishing a relationship between bodies and ill landscapes. The authors behind it, Maria Morata Marco and Lorenzo Galgo, are interested in dark and minimal ecologies, those of waste, plague, exploitation, dried up reservoirs, those that include the dimension of pain. We are lucky to have today with us Maria and Lorenzo, who will unfold the project, which is called Pen in the West, Access Rider for Landscape. Maria, whenever you want.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us today. Lorenzo, due to technical reasons, cannot be with us in this presentation, but he is listening in the webinar. And I will introduce myself and the project, which is Pain in the West, an Access Rider for Landscapes, or Dolor al Oeste, Access Rider para un Paisaje. And so I will introduce myself, and then I will launch the video where Lorenzo will present herself, and we will explain the project and the collaborators we would like to work with. So my pronouns are she, her. I am using a moving jellyfish background in blue and violet tones. You can see my face. I have dark long hair with a straight fringe, dark eyes, light skin, and I am wearing a red pullover. I am in a warm sea full of jellyfishes. I would like to become one of them. I am trying it. In the meantime, I work as a freelance curator, researcher, lecturer, and artist. I have recently started a long life process of learning to live with chronic pain, which allows me to work again, but with reduced capacity. I want to bring behind issues of productivity, excellence, and competitiveness, which have been leading my professional practice for years before I started to have health issues in 2015. And now I would like to share the video with you.
art practice is based on performative ways of fitting the landscape and empathetic approaches to its accessibility needs. Through this somatic thinking of the affective realities of the territories, we have begun to develop an access rider that questions the hegemonic forms of extraction and economic performance by introducing them together with the perspective of pain and illness from bodies that share this vulnerability.
We are interested in dark and minimal ecologies, those of waste, plague, exploitation, dryad reservoirs, those that include the dimension of pain. How could an energetic system be articulated from the capacity of the body and the creep landscape? In these landscapes echoes the rumors of rescues and therapies, of violent cures, of authoritarian interventions. How to live with and accompany sick, violated, tame, exhausted landscapes? We want to explore an access rider prototype for landscapes. Our workshop proposal is articulate on feeling the other, understanding that the practice of thinking about the needs, desires, and affection of a specific space or landscape is contradictory and continually clashes against the boundary walls of our unappellable human voice. We assume this lameness in our methodology and we articulate it from it. I state that being in construction is already a ruin, a morphology inherent to a thought from disability and disease. We will work from a specific place, the West Park in Madrid, Parque del Oeste. This place is close to us and at the same time extraordinary. We propose a structure of collective sound walk, a somatic and caring walk through the park with a resting picnic and exchange of impressions. We will explore our individual resonance with the park in any possible and desirable way, creating an individual documentation of the process.
After the walk, we will make a reenactment of the somatic journey in the spaces of Media Lab, working from the failures of the archive and its tremors. We will make a scene by collectively building props, a rehearsal or a video, maybe a video rehearsal, reactivating what happened in and out with our bodies in a new ways of being within a landscape that we will have discovered, articulating ourselves from the territory, sharing vulnerabilities, reperforming and rethinking as a collective method to prototype and proto-eviscerate a possible access rider. So let's recap. Disabled landscape, accessibility, sick ecologies, reenactment, sound walk, shared vulnerabilities, dimensions of pain, overflowing prototype, somatic resonances, access rider.
Our proposal is open to all those interested in accompanying us in the painful readings of landscapes, especially to collaborators with diverse bodies and minds who have had or wish to have contact with an access rider, an accessibility document. We would like to count on researchers from the scientific field of natural science in expanded sense, biologists, geologists, landscape scientists, pharmacists, veterinarians, engineers, among others, as well as all diverse ecological activists. All artists, designers, architects, musicians, authors, performers with or without work will be welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maria and Lorenzo, for sharing this project with us. So exciting. Yeah, looking forward to develop it here in January. Our next project is a very peculiar one. It's called empirical reaesthetic, or la reestética empírica. And it's a proposal targeting the scientific validation of a primarily artistic and poetic project, which propose the return to primordial aesthetics with capital A. This will mean a comeback to the senses in accordance with the original meaning of aesthesis in Greek. Firstly, only in the imagination, giving the chance to rethink the question of the thermal sensation, either because of the inevitable global warming in the longer term, or because of the eventual energy crisis in Europe during the 22 winter. But this is just the beginning. The empirical reaesthetic aims to explore the body limits of temperature, the subjectivity of the optimal comfort points, and the limits that the society is willing to tolerate, either by imminent and inevitable necessity or by environmental consciousness. His author, Josep Maria Gabnau, is here with us today to explain us a bit more about it. Josep, all yours. I think you're muted.
Hello.
Yeah, there we go.
I hope you hear me well now. Yes.
Yeah, we hear you.
Perfect. Yes, I'm Josep Maria Gabnau, alias Arsassin. And well, the empirical aesthetics is a project targeting the scientific validation of an originally poetic project, which proposes the return to primordial aesthetics. This would mean a comeback to the senses, in accordance with the original meaning of aesthesis in Greek. First, only in imagination, giving the chance to rethink the question of the thermal sensation, either because of the inevitable global warming in the longer term, or because of the eventual energy crisis in Europe during the 2022 winter. Reaesthetics could imply a return to a real infernal aesthetics, either by an excess of heat or excess of cold. The empirical reaesthetics aims to explore the bodily limits of temperatures, the subjectivity of the optimal comfort points, as well as the limits that society is willing to tolerate, either by imminent necessity or by environmental consciousness. An exploration which is intended to reach deeper and deeper layers of reality, from the original poiesis to scientific validation, then with empirical social validation, and finally to political implementation. Well, this was the initial project that was shown in the abstract, and I hope to be able to modify it thanks to the feedback received from my colleagues. Feedback from peers and experts. We will redefine the project from a plurality of disciplines, ambitions about society, because the ultimate goal is to experiment scientifically and sociologically the sensations produced by this return to the infernal aesthetics and the primordial senses by necessity, which would imply a distance from the aesthetics that became dominant, and which has a mainly intellectual, conceptual, and speculative character. The idea of this project is to validate the aesthetics. It's a new aesthetics of temperature, an artistic project that proposes a return to the old and original meaning of aesthetics, with a special emphasis on the perceptions of the thermal receptions, both in excess and by absence, and reflect the impact that implies for the humanity. The global warming coming in the longer term, and the most immediate threat of the coldest winter in decades within European homes, due to a lack of energy resources, which since the Industrial Revolution of fossil fuels and electricity have artificially heated homes, allowing an exceptional level of comfort, which perhaps humanity can't nor should afford. It's about revaluing from the aesthetics the primordial sensations of the lowest imminent health, highlighting the aspect of the human thermal sensation in a world where the global warming is intensifying, and focusing on aesthetics and the philosophical aspect of the problem, but as well in its potential replicability. Where are the limits of the aesthetics? What could the society tolerate in this environment of abrupt energy scarcity? In other words, to what extent is it politically feasible to change the focus from the optimization of the subjective and selfish thermal sensation to a focus on the objective necessity in pursuit of the sustainability of the planet, always considering the point of view of the overall health of the population and a minimum level of comfort, and studying the social dynamics and reactions it could produce among the population, a change of such magnitude in the living conditions. Now the idea is make the conceptualization, the preliminary approach to a technical validation with air conditioning and computer engineers, social scientific, sociological validation, especially throughout the design of scientifically and rigorous experiments, as well as medical supervision. This is moving from the sensation and poetry to theory and science, building a bridge between these fields that many times some try to completely segregate. The project is open to all kinds of collaborators due to its interdisciplinary approach. But since I am an economist and philosopher specialized in art and aesthetics, my shortcomings mainly lie in air conditioning engineering, and as well about the scientific knowledge about climate, meteorology, and medicine. The objective is to generate patterns for scientific experiments as well as patterns for other sociological questionnaires, and elaborate cartographical maps that could be materialized in physical works, and redefine the theoretical framework. One concept that I find interesting about the project is a distinction I make between ethic optimums of temperatures and emic optimums of temperatures. The distinction between emic and ethic was made by the anthropologist Marvin Harris, although Kenneth Pike used the term before in another context, to distinguish between the explanations that rationalize the actions made by the members of a community or by a specific individual from the explanations that an objective observer could make from outside. An emic optimum would be one that the subject justifies as adequate and convenient in the case of the aesthetics in relation to temperatures. One moment, sorry. Instead of an ethic point, that would be the one that is determined by socially adequate by an external and objective researcher, according to the risk and health profile, but also taking into account the geoeconomics and social context in the country of question. And that could and have a normative translation in its legislation. For example, determining a maximum temperature to which homes can be heated in winter and a minimum cooling temperature in summer, which should not be perforated below. I would mention some theoretical framework that I have designed to deal with the whole issue, which makes difficult to distinguish whether this new aesthetics is aesthetic discipline or rather a science. But it's also the purpose of the project. This cannot be explained quickly because there are many terms, and it would be too dense for a session like this of 10 minutes. Therefore, you can better look the following images in the link that is shown at the end. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much to you, Josep. Like I said, a very peculiar and characteristic project. I'm looking forward also to develop it and see who applies for it. I'm pretty sure it's going to be very, very interesting. Our next project is a fiction, and not a very desirable one, actually. It starts in 2023 and confronts us to a dystopic world where solar power becomes a new kind of currency. The project engaged with another way of prototyping that we are very, very interested here at Media Lab, and is the prototyping of potential futures. Futures that either because we want to accomplish them or because we want to avoid them allow us to think in new critical ways about the forces shaping the present. In that sense, we think about fiction as a prototyping tool, right? Eugene Jung is the author of our next project called Sun Has a New Currency. She sent a video, so let's go for it.
Hi, I'm Eugene, and I'm a promoter for our project, The Sun as a New Currency. The Sun as a New Currency is a project that imagines a dystopian future where political power is derived from solar energy harvesting. I have a small trailer for you. Let me start with that.
I think this winter we will see the German economy slipping into recession. This is inevitable. Inflation is just too high so that consumers will close their purses and not spend during the winter. Money will have to be kept in order to pay energy bills. This is a main concern, of course. And then we also see industry shutting down production given these sky-high energy prices. So this is going to be a sharp recession at the turn of the year, and next year is going to be a muted recovery because
at the top of the agenda, the looming recession caused by high energy prices and record high inflation in Europe.
In 2022, energy cost inflation because of the Ukrainian and Russian war caused the energy to become an individual and household responsibility. It is unclear what the sustainable energy source of the future will be to most people. But owning solar panels allows you to generate energy domestically easily rather than wind, hydro, and biomass energy. Solar houses, solar clothes, and solar electronics require solar panels and infrastructure. Not all houses were able to afford solar panels and maintenance fees, especially where a huge amount of energy is needed in modern society. In order to get solar panels, solar thieves, spies, and security guards were hired. At the same time, because the sun has a crucial role in literally everything, the sun as religion became popular and new ethics were created. If you steal a solar panel, the solar god will burn you. On the other hand, the economy of the global north and south flipped. Most of the countries in the global south that had extreme weather and couldn't produce food started to get rich from renting solar land industry. Some countries are planning how to legally colonize the land where the sun is, like back in history. Some of the rich global north countries started to create an alliance so they can monopoly the market, and many solar spies worked for this. Not only the planet Earth, but anywhere the sun reaches inside of the solar system became a candidate land for energy.
So, this year we got to feel how energy is directly connected to the economy, politics, and also our daily life. For example, I couldn't turn on the heater at home until end of October because I was afraid to get a huge energy bill. My interest to energy got bigger and bigger, and I got to join one workshop related to the solar energy. The program I joined was 1 week of intense prototype workshop related to sun. I could learn so many things about solar energy from experts and researchers, like what are the application of it and how it works and the relationship with sun and humans. And there were so many different types of solar panels, like flexible one, hard one, transparent or colored one. And then there were so many beautiful designs as well. But one of the most interesting to me was transmitting energy from one side to the other side. How this invisible energy becomes another form of energy, like heat, sounds, and light, and so on. That was starting point of this project for me. And when we think about sun and solar energy, there are many layers intertwined. The economy will change and politics will get involved. From there, a new structural power will be created. In my speculative story, solar energy is only energy we can produce by solar panels, since another sustainable energy requires a bigger infrastructure. From charging our phones to heating the water for shower and cooking, everything needs solar energy in the future in this story. Then the culture around the sun perhaps also change. Maybe like if you do something bad, the solar god will punish you by taking away your access to sunlight. It's interesting to think about how much sunlight hits the global north and south. One of the books I read when I was young was called Guns, Germs and Steel, written by Gerard Diamond. And he states that the main reason why some societies have been more successful than others is due to their geographical location. Then what if the global south becomes a geographically more beneficial location where it produces a lot of energy and money? Then power structure we know at this moment can flip. This project was inspired by many amazing projects, but for example, Solarpunk. Solarpunk is a book imagining a solar utopia, but I'm a half-empty glass person, so I wanted to imagine a dystopian future instead, and focusing more on negative side effects of this amazing development of solar energy. And yeah, another thing about Solarpunk is that it often focused on the individual or community level of imagination. So this time I wanted to unpack a bit more and focus on the global and political scale. And in order to do that, I would love to collaborate with multidisciplinary experts so we can build visual prototypes and ideally a short film together. Yeah, so I can introduce myself with what kind of skill I have. I major in industrial design, so I can make some prototype in physical prototype, but also digital prototype, because my background is also graphic design, and it's not experts level of skills, but I like to take photographs and I can also edit the video. And next to that, I'm also experimenting with some creating dystopian kind of weird and heavy sounds. And these pictures are from the workshop I've been to, making sounds using e-waste and create some synthesizer. It was really fun, but I still need somebody who has more knowledge about creating sounds, or who can engineering for this prototype. So I can introduce the collaborators we need from this project. It doesn't need to be professional skills, but if you have an interest, then we can develop this interest together and learn from each other. So that's no problem. So I'm looking for a collaborator with energy knowledge, ideally solar, but any energy is really valuable to think about how the future will be. And somebody who has prototype engineering and programming. By the way, these skills are all separate, so you don't need to have all these skills, just one of them. And somebody who is good at 3D art or visual designing, so we can create together. And as I mentioned earlier, somebody who is interested in sounds or music creation. And eventually it's gonna be a short film, I hope. And if you have any good perspective on making film, it'll be really, really nice. So I'm really looking forward to meeting you all, and thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Eugene. Well, let's move on to the final project for today's webinar. Contemporary planetary scale processes such climate change, migration flows, or globalization are extremely complex, quick, and due to their nature, most of the time hard to follow or monitor, right? At the same time, decision-making on all the scales, geopolitics, policy, urban planning, architecture, is closely entangled or should be closely entangled with these processes. The final project, called Learning from GIS, proposed to generate real-time maps based on publicly available remote sensing data that can help to, first, understanding existing conditions, and second, to speculate on possible policy modifications which are more favorable to the environment. And also, hopefully, to create automated recursive processes between these 2 points. As a case study, their authors, Marine Lemarie and Nicolas Stefan, suggest measuring the distribution of carbon mitigating entities, both natural, such as forests, oceans, as well as human-made carbon sinks, like CCS facilities. Their goal is to overlay this data with already existing and potential asset cash flows to work on the following research questions. First, what is the spatial implication of carbon trading? Second, does carbon emissions trading involve unequal land use between developed and developing countries? And three, how can carbon emissions trading or land use policy be potentially redefined? Marine is here with us today to explain us more about the project. So Marine, whenever you are ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eduardo. I'm going to try to fill in the gaps because you have said already a lot. So I'm Marine Lemarie. I'm a researcher and educator in architecture. I will present the project Learning from GIS that I will lead together with Nicolas Stefan, my studio partner at Distant Realities. So in our practice, Distant Realities, as well as in this project, in particular, generally, the projects include the study of architecture and landscape through zoning laws, urban and environmental policy, infrastructure, and networks on a quite large scale, including the planetary and the urban. So this is a video from a previous project that deals with the same intention and techniques as with this particular project, Learning from GIS, where we will analyze landscapes using GIS methods and real-time maps and remote sensing. So we know that contemporary planetary scale processes such as climate change, migration flows, and globalization are extremely complex, quick, and hard to follow. But at the same time, governance decision-making on all scales of policy or urban planning actually have to react to these processes.
Marine, Marine, sorry to interrupt you, but the video it stops from time to time. Now it's working. Okay, so maybe it was just waiting for me to start speaking. No.
It's loading. Yeah.
Well, let's try
loading.
to let's keep on, and if it keeps happening, maybe I don't know what we could do.
It's okay? I think it should be all right. Yeah. Okay. Should be all right. Yeah. Okay, let's go. There's it's always like the similar screen. It's the same. It's the screen like recording. So I was at this time difference between the fast processes and the slower processes. So actually the time difference between both space and power systems, or actually between slow and rapid systems, has a significant impact on our world because they don't really correlate with each other. So for instance, we have laws that are here to prevent some disaster to happen, those that repair previous ones, and those that cope with the now. But how efficient are environmental policies in regard to present ecological changes impacted by rapidly moving societal and economical movements? To address this timely issue, we propose to generate real-time maps based on publicly available remote sensing data that can help to first understand and second rapidly speculate on possible policy modifications which are more favorable to the environment. And as a case study, we will suggest to measure the distribution of carbon mitigation in forests, oceans, and human-made carbon sinks, such as CCS facilities, overlaid with the associated cash flow. So this will show where carbon trading happens, if carbon trading involves unequal land use between developed and developing countries, or how to redefine carbon emission trading or land use policy. So before generating the real-time maps, we need to kind of establish a theoretical framework for the map projections and the measuring and planning tools that we will use. So one example is this one. The tools are closely related to a worldview, or as Bruno Latour calls it, cosmogram, which is guiding its application. So the cosmogram is a concept that helps to understand the world as a whole. So it's an ideological standpoint towards the planet, and it produces systems of abstraction that structure the world we live in. Another tool that we'll use is, or question, is the choice of the projection type. So there are many different world map projections with different meanings. Google Maps, for example, mainly uses a projection known as the Web Mercator plus a web project, a globe projection. But there are many other options in GIS mapping. For example, when studying the oceans, it will be helpful to use the Spillhouse projection, which connects all the oceans together. So you can see that actually, if you have one effect here, then it actually affects everywhere, all the oceans. So these are like ways to show how projections have their respective meaning. So the work in this project intends to visualize data in an equitable way, which also means that we need to visualize overlapping data. Classical mapping usually ignores overlapping data when mapping between two sets. So this is because the border logic assumes that the boundaries between the two sets are clear and fixed. However, overlapping data can be an important part of mapping when it exists across multiple sets. On the other hand, mapping with gradients can be helpful in displaying complex patterns. The next tool that we will use is, actually we will look at these two in opposition. So in some contemporary GIS tools, they already provide fuzzy or cell-based mapping in various geometric forms, such as square grids or hexagonal grids. So while square grids are the standard graphical tool in fuzzy mapping, the hex grid was recently popularized by the company Unfolded. The two geometries have advantages and disadvantages. For example, the square tiles can be easily accumulated, while differences to their surrounding neighbors vary. The geometry of hex tiles, on the other hand, allows for equal distances of centroids, making them more quantifiable. So in our case, we will use the hex tiles exactly for these reasons. So this is a screenshot from the Unfolded studio showing farmlands in the US. So for our workflow, and also the goal of this project is to collect and overlay multiple publicly available data sets, such as NASA's Landsat, Copernicus, or OpenStreetMaps, to create a more complete picture of the performance of each area. And instead of using classical polygon-based maps, we'll use a fuzzy mapping approach, which allows for much more quantifiable data. And by comparing the data from the maps, we'll be able to better understand which areas are doing well and which ones need improvement. This is to inform governments and communities how their activities impact the planet and how policies can improve the areas that need it. We will decide together in the workshop on which part of the world we want to focus. We will then speculate on measures and outcomes of the potential transformations. So the project's output could be an online page, publicly accessible, with multiple layers of maps that show through colored gradients how natural resources interact with political agendas. This process involves two major steps. So first, the analysis, where we will spot relevant conflict zones where resource management is weak and where it would benefit from visualizing that data, and then collect the public GIS data for step 2, which is the simulation. So the simulation will make the data subject to simulations. It must be first imported into a custom Unity or Touch Designer application, and this application is used to display and process the data as a tile-based map. The cells of this map can then be made subject to algorithmic rules, such as cellular automata, in order to simulate conditions on various scales. Finally, regarding the collaborators and also our specific skills, so we do have like conceptual and artistic tools in our hands to develop this project, but we also lack other expertise, especially expert knowledge in programming and like coding for GIS data. That will be needed for sourcing the data and like making it automatically process in real time efficiently. And also, due to the project's interdisciplinary nature, it will be also very helpful to have knowledge in climate sciences, biology, geography. But we are aware that a team of experts of all disciplines is maybe unlikely, but establishing the project as a conceptual tool, I think, is more than enough for the concept of this project. So yeah, all in all, we're especially looking for GIS experts and geographists and climate scientists, highly welcome, as well as everyone who has interests in those fields as well. And finally, we can also send you, or like you can contact us if you have any questions right now or later through Instagram, email, anything, and we're super happy to chat about the project and answer questions and maybe send more information. We have more documents and everything. So yeah, happy to chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for sharing this project with us. Again, it's very interesting because it actually create a loop with some of the topics that we have been looking at Media Lab in our last lab, the one that we did before the metabolic sublime, which was called sentient media, and also look at on how this kind of sensing technologies can allow us to implement the governance models that we actually have. Well, thank you so much. That was all for today. That was the last project we had to present today. As you can see, like a very diverse and interesting collection of them, each one of them engaging with the topic of the metabolic sublime, but at the same time doing it from very particular approaches and fields. Again, the objective and the goal of this event was, to present them openly to the public, and hopefully to invite you to apply as a collaborator to help the amazing group of people that you just met today in order to develop these projects. The lab will take place, as we already have mentioned, at the end of January, from the 25th of January to the 7th of February. And also, it's important to say that the results of the project, it's very likely that they are not end projects. You know, they are not final, but more like the first presentation of ongoing ones, of ongoing projects that hopefully here also in Media Lab we will be able to continue further after the lab. Those results will be presented in a festival, a 2-day festival event that we do to wrap up every lab that we do, which is our open lab that will take place here at Matadero in Madrid, the 10th and the 11th of February. Also remember that this call for collaborators is open to people from every discipline from all over the world. It's not limited just from people that come from Spain. Actually, and it's very important, we offer fellowships for people to come for free, and we will cover all costs of traveling plus accommodation for specific profiles that are very, very good to the needs of the different projects. We will cover those expenses to bring those people here to Madrid to develop the projects during the lab. For more information about the projects, if you want to apply, just remember to visit our website, the Media Lab website, and also the website of the lab, El Sublime Metabólico, which we're going to post here somewhere in YouTube. And also, you know, if you have any questions, you also can leave the question here in the chat of YouTube that we will leave open, and we will try to answer them, or also get in contact with us here in Media Lab. Well, I just want to thank everybody, the promoters who have been with us here today, Elena, Maria, Max, Marin, Josep. Thank you so much for joining us. Also for the ones that couldn't make it, Alphonse and Eugene. It's great to have this collection of projects. We are very, very excited about it, and we are looking forward to develop them. So thank you so much for sharing with us. Also, thank you so much to the Media Lab team for all the hard work, and most of all, thank you to all the spectators that are looking at this. We really invite you to apply and hopefully meet in person here in Media Lab Matadero in January. So thank you so much, and see you soon.